The Philippines might seem like a tropical paradise. One would imagine that life here would be one of comfort and simplicity. But the Filipinos know that the devil hides within the nature. Typhoons repeatedly destroy the fundaments of everyday life. Schools of fish are not so easily found today, and many fishermen have to feed their families, taking on hard and at times dangerous work. Such was the case with Sosimo Soriano, a fisherman from the small town of Oslob. And then something happened that the locals referred to as a gift from God. Sometimes the fishermen of Oslob meet for a beer in the evening on the beach. There, Sosimo Soriano listens on to the stories of his friend Zinto.
15 años pa ko.
I'll tell you all something about whale sharks. I was 15 years old when I first encountered one of these formidable animals. It happened close to Palawan, where we were swimming in a very deep part of the sea. Suddenly, someone called out, "Watch out, there's a whale shark." I looked behind me, and there I saw an enormous fish that was swimming directly towards me, attracted by the splashing and paddling of my feet. I was absolutely terrified, but then someone called out, "He won't do anything to you. He wants to be your friend," and that was absolutely true. They are extremely friendly, and it's no wonder that they've earned the nickname of peaceful giants. We have to treat them with respect, because they have an intellect and feelings as we do. In the Philippines, with its 7,000 islands, the sea plays an omnipresent role. The grouping of islands is situated in the so-called Coral Triangle. It counts as one of the most varied habitats of its kind in the world. The ebb and flow of the tide dictates the pace of everyday life. Everything and everyone in this sea world is dependent upon the ocean. And even here, empty fishing nets are not unusual, as the sea has to feed nearly 100 million Filipinos. Climate change has intensified the dreaded typhoons that afflict the islands. In 2013, Typhoon Yolanda raged across the Philippines, reaching winds of up to 300 kilometers per hour, killing not only thousands of people, but also destroying 1 million homes. However, the inhabitants didn't give up afterwards. Tirelessly, they rebuilt everything in waiting for the next storm. The Soriano family have already been up and about for 2 hours as the sun chases away the last vestiges of night at around 6 a.m. The children have to complete their chores before they set off for school. That the Sorianos have so much work to do is a normality of their everyday life, and no one complains. Lonnie Soriano has to do the washing of 7 children and 2 grown-ups all by hand.
Pero kung dagat lang atong saligan niya, bagyo, murag hinay ta. Sa katong
It's very difficult when one has to survive solely from fishing. Actually, it's impossible because of those damned typhoons. Before Typhoon Pablo hit, the corals and the seagrass were still intact, and therefore there were still lots of fish. However, Pablo destroyed everything. First the corals died, and then the fish. We've had to find other ways to earn money in the meantime, so that we can survive. Now we keep chickens, pigs, and goats so that we can sell their meat, as well as selling bundles of firewood and harvested coconuts. My biggest hope is that I can manage to save money for my children's education. They'd be proud and grateful even if they only managed to complete a high school education, because I never had the opportunity. And the house, well, it does need urgent repairs, but that's impossible at present. I have an obligation to my children that they have a chance to get ahead in life. Sosimo had to leave school at the age of 11 to work. At that age, he hunted for fish on the seabed, breathing only with a breathing tube. The work was hard and dangerous, and at the age of 14, he looked to find something easier. He signed up to work in a steelworks.
Bye-bye, mga anak.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Now he has lived on this hill with his wife for over 20 years working as a fisherman. At first they had to live in a ruin, but Sosimo worked hard. His everyday journey to work is a steep path down the hill. But things were looking up for his family. Nevertheless, with 7 children and a job that doesn't bring in much money, it's now difficult for him to put enough food on the table for his family. The old outrigger boats, known as bankers, are looked upon with amusement in other parts of Asia. They're considered old-fashioned. Despite this, they're fast and remain stable, even on high waves. The boats have proved their worth over thousands of years. Sosumo's style of fishing could be described as eco-friendly. There are no nets to damage the corals or to ensnare and kill any unwanted prey senselessly. Sosumo has attached a fishing hook and a mass of shrimps to a stone. Now, he looks under the water to locate the fish that he wants to catch. He paddles his boat exactly to where his prey are. Fishing in this style, it can sometimes take up to 3 hours before he gets a bite. However, the aroma of his bait sometimes attracts the attention of somewhat larger animals. The whale shark is the largest fish in the world's seas. A fully grown male can grow to be as big as a bus. But Sosumo doesn't have to fear being eaten. Whale sharks prefer plankton, shrimps, and smaller fish. But they cannot resist the odor of the shrimps. Over the years, a special relationship has built up between these giants of the sea and the fishermen of Oslob. It's unique across the whole world.
Oh, betul. Betul. Hop. Nya. Oh, mabangga, oh, grabe ka bangga ang imong baruto kung mabuak unya nya.
Sometimes they ram against the boat with their tail fins. Then I have to distract them, otherwise they might destroy my boat. Boats are expensive and I can't afford to buy myself a new one. So what do I do when the whale sharks come? I try to trick them. I throw them a bit of food and then quickly make my getaway while they're eating. But they always follow afterwards until I've used up all my bait. Exactly why there should be so many whale sharks here, no one knows. In other parts of the world, they are more like nomads, covering extensive distances. However, there are always some that decide to extend their stay around Oslob. Perhaps the location is nearby to one of their routes. The sea's currents define the routes of the whale sharks, carrying as they do the nourishment for the animals. However, it is not only large fish that profit from the plenitude of the Philippines' waters. Fields of seagrass are also home to the masters of camouflage. The robust ghost pipefish stands like a mottled blade of seagrass in the current. Another member of the ghost pipefish family, this time brown and seared. They, like the whale sharks, find nourishment from tiny prawns and crabs. This leaf is no larger than a roulette jeton. Nevertheless, it is home to numerous animals. At the center, tiny fish seek their cover. This snail is smaller than the seed of an apple. This skeleton shrimp shares something in common with the whale shark in that they both feed on plankton. Here, a female carries her offspring with. Protection of the brood in the land of the miniature. This bizarre species has conquered nearly all of the seas. They exist in the tropics, but also in the Arctic Ocean. Despite this, there are very few divers who have ever witnessed a skeleton shrimp close up. It's not easy for these fragile creatures. Even this nudibranch pushes them away. Bizarre as these creatures are, their enemy is of another caliber altogether. A skeleton shrimp's nightmare looks like something from another planet. To be exact, it is a species of sea slug. It possesses a mouth opening that expands, encompassing its prey completely. Few escape from such an entrapment. The strange tree-like growths on its back are its gills. This sepia has no inhibitions. She hides behind the snail. She has to wait until the snail moves on. The snail is in the process of laying her eggs. The small cuttlefish stays close on the snail's heels, well out of view. Her colors rapidly change if she loses contact with her mobile shelter. Zosimo has spent all day fishing. Despite that, he must go out to work again in the night. For some, it would be perhaps too uneery to be out at sea alone at night. Zosimo has long become accustomed to it and sails out untroubled by the darkness. He attracts his prey with his light. He's not looking to fill his own plate with his catch. Instead, he's fishing for little shrimps called uyap, a delicacy for the whale sharks. It's at night that one can see what attracts the whale sharks. The torch illuminates an ocean teeming with life. The highly venomous banded sea crate takes his fill from moray eels. Large sea snails, partridge tons, bustle along their way. It dissolves its prey of sea urchins and mussels with its acidic saliva. These dozing surgeonfish, on the other hand, are not such night owls. What is a wonder is the sheer amount of the small to the smallest creatures. A rare blizzard of shrimps, larvae, worms, and countless other creatures. It's not that the batteries are fading on the torch, but simply the density of the inhabitants below the surface. This is what makes Oslob so very interesting for the whale sharks. There were two men fishing in the sea when one of them suddenly shouted, "Hey, stop pulling on my net!" But it was a whale shark who'd got ensnared in the net. The men remembered that they should treat creatures of the sea with respect, and so said to the whale shark, "Here is something to eat. Please don't destroy our net." And the whale shark obeyed them. He could have ripped their net apart, but the fishermen dealt with him politely and with respect. Sometimes it's the small, seemingly unimportant things that can make such a difference. Allegedly, a storm can break out on the other side of the world when a butterfly flaps its wings. One person at the right time and in the right place can totally change the lives of hundreds of others. Sosimo can remember what occurred at the time. He reenacts what happened. Some tourists found their way to Oslob. Then they noticed the strange movements in the sea. The stranger couldn't believe his eyes as he saw the enormous fishes and wanted to get a closer look. He asked Sosimo if he could ride out with him the next day. "No problem," answered Sosimo. What he experienced far exceeded his expectations. The fisherman could control the whale sharks like a dog on a lead by leaving them a trail of food. Would it be possible for him to go in the sea with the whale sharks? Again, not a problem. The tourist filmed himself with the whale sharks with an underwater camera and then posted the video online. The film was an internet sensation, exploding with thousands of people clicking onto it. Suddenly, the internet was abuzz all over the world with discussions about Oslob and its sea giants. The fishermen and the whale sharks were famous. There were also many loud voices of dissent. Should the feeding of wildlife be a tourist attraction? But many had already heard the stories about the whale sharks and wanted to experience them themselves. What had before seemed impossible was suddenly a reality. Oslob developed into a tourist resort and changed Sosimo's life. Now he hardly ever goes fishing and instead he feeds whale sharks. The holiday guests normally only stay for one day. They've come to see the whale sharks and nothing else. And the whale sharks are as regular as a Swiss watch mechanism. They arrive at the same time every day. It is a guaranteed wildlife experience. Encounters with the giants in the open sea are often very fleeting. With all their attention on eating, they normally swim past without noticing people. In contrast, one can observe them at leisure in the waters of Oslob. It's mainly the younger whale sharks that allow themselves to be fed. Most are no larger than 6 meters, but for most of the snorkelers, that's 6 meters enough. Now, there is a new profession: tourist guide for the whale sharks. Oslob might well be the only tourist destination in the world where putting the guests down is actively encouraged. Everyone wants to have a picture of themselves with a whale shark, and that works best underwater. Nearly all of the photos end up online. Oslob really has no need to do any advertising. In only a few months, living with the whale sharks has transformed from a nuisance into a windfall. Oslob is not a rich city. There were never any notable tourist attractions. Industry? Certainly nothing to speak of. Many people try to make ends meet by starting up small to the smallest enterprises. Nearly 30,000 people live here. The main site is something like a city centre, but the illusion is misleading. Oslob actually stretches over many kilometres of coastline. Many of its 21 districts have similar tiny villages and towns. Alongside rice and chicken, fish is the most common item on the menu. Despite the fact that the sea is on the doorstep, the fish eaten here are imported from other regions. Here, the fish stocks are exhausted. Such large schools of fish haven't been seen in Oslob for a very long time. Overfishing, through over-efficient techniques, and overgrown fishing fleets has exploited and driven out the natural marine treasures. But there is something else that is responsible for the disappearance of the fish at Oslob. This underwater desert is a reef that a typhoon destroyed. Where the corals were spared, the multitudinous marine life exists as normal. Such coral gardens used to exist in front of Oslob, but since Typhoon Pablo, they have disappeared. The reefs are habitat and playground for countless species of marine life. It is a finely balanced ecosystem, each of its citizens playing their own important role. The soft corals act not only as nutrition for the green sea turtle, but also as a pillow. That is, as long as there's not any unruly neighbours making it impossible to catch a little nap. The live shark sucker, however, is untroubled by the idea of taking a lift on the tortoise's shell. Hard corals are important hiding places and one that you should think twice before leaving. This lizard fish has probably bitten off more than he can chew. The cardinal fish's dorsal spine makes it all a bit hard to swallow. This shoal of batfish, on the other hand, know exactly where they are going. With dance-like grace, the cleaner wrasse lets it be known that they're open for business. The pitched angle of the batfish shows he's now ready for a bit of cleaning. He invitingly opens his gills, allowing the cleaning personnel into his most intimate places. The workforce removes any parasites from the sensitive gills. This little barter is equally beneficial for both parties. The lizardfish still has a problem digesting his lunch. A A dark shadow moves at a depth of 30 meters. The curious thresher shark swims into schools of fish, whipping its long tail fin and eating the stunned recipients. Here, however, they come looking for one of the cleaning stations. Cleaning fish are only found where there are corals. Without the corals, there is no protection against the parasites. The lizardfish has finally conquered his irksome mouthful. A part of the giant whale shark's nutritional needs are also to be found in the coral reefs. The fish of the reefs serve the sea with an abundance of eggs and larvae. The corals are also great contributors to the plankton in the open waters. When the corals multiply, they throw up enormous quantities of eggs and larvae, all of which is carried along by the sea's currents. The largest creatures are the winners of the smallest's industry. But without the coral reefs, the whale shark would suffer, despite that he's not a habitant.
Nabalo siya na kanang gabi na ba na paon siya na.
There was one night where a fisherman had terrible luck. He didn't catch a single fish. In his frustration, he threw his baited hook into the sea and cried, "I don't care which creature swallows the hook and dies." But then he felt a tug on his line. With great excitement, he began to pull his line in, only to be shocked when he was confronted by the head of a buffalo. The animal was still alive and rolled his large eyes wildly as the blood ran from his neck. The fisherman returned to his house in deep shock. You see, we have to treat the sea with more respect. We shouldn't even whistle, because it assists the winds.
Hoy, idol tihol, dili atong lugar. Sa to ba?
The world is beginning to change, even for the whale sharks of Oslob. The people who want to swim with them are on the increase. And ever-growing numbers of former fishermen, factory workers and truck drivers want to earn money from them. Over a short period of time, the beach transforms into a form of water adventure park. On one Sunday, 3,000 visitors jostled for a chance to swim with the giants. As the tourists fight for the whale sharks, the locals of Oslob fight for the tourists. The situation awakes the concerns of nature conservationists. Will the daily chaos have a negative effect on the whale sharks? Will they lose their natural instincts when they are constantly surrounded by people? All the pushing and shoving adds another risk for the tourists. Here, one of them is inadvertently struck by a tail fin. And this swimmer is oblivious to the fact that she's in the path of the whale shark's mouth. Luckily, not his taste. Motorboats now increasingly fill the waters from the neighbouring islands. And then, the inevitable happens. A whale shark called Firmin is hit by the propellers of one of the boats. The menfolk of Oslob are unanimous. This cannot be allowed to continue. And so they're making the difference. They form contacts with marine biologists and politicians. The result? Tighter regulations for the protection of the whale sharks.
Gikuan man gud na nga 4 meters.
The most important regulation is that every boat and every swimmer has to maintain a distance of 4 meters. We'd already forbidden contact with the whale sharks, but the new regulation helps us to control it more effectively. We can easily see their path and move our boats accordingly so that everyone has enough space. The 4-meter rule has been a great help.
Pero dako kayog tabang ang among pamaagi nga 4 meters. Okay. Murag distansya naman ang 4 meters.
The new regulations help to coordinate the increased demands of tourism. The working day for the whale shark men begins around 5 a.m. with the preparation of the bait. Whereas earlier the 3 groups had competed, they instead collaborate. Now they all work as one. In the meantime, the men must no longer fish for the bait themselves. Now they can buy it from other corners of the Philippines. Sosimo is out on his boat long before the first tourists arrive. His job? To attract the whale sharks. They, in turn, are never slow to take up the invitation. Marine biologists have counted 140 different ones around the feeding sites. The tourists, in the meantime, are given guidelines as to how they should conduct themselves and the penalties for not doing so. In one of the newly agreed regulations to cut down on the numbers, admission was increased by 100%. Milet and Cheta and her family live on the neighbouring island. It's their first visit here.
Come and go. Yeah, kasi migratory talaga. This area
It's a short journey because the whale sharks swim only 40 meters from the beach. The tourist boats are bound together behind one another in a line. The whale shark feeders then patrol back and forth, feeding the sharks. The chaos of former days is no more. The new ways are so well regulated that it's even safe for Milet to take her young son Rue into the water.
Say hi there. Hi. Sino to? Ayan, baka.
Why don't you give him a name?
This is not the migratory one.
The family is in luck. It's not often that one can witness a young animal. At 2.5 meters, he is all but still a toddler. Now, biologists have to ascertain whether the continued feeding is beneficial to the whale shark population. The whale sharks are seemingly unperturbed that they receive only morsels of feed. It's unimportant if the whale sharks are only happy to bide their time here, that they are safe is the main thing. The line of boats moves slowly forward. After half an hour, they have reached the end of the line and the boats return to the beach.
1, 2, 3.
But of course, not without the obligatory pose with the hosts. Nobody leaves without one.
Oh, it was fabulous. Amazing. I've never seen so much whale sharks at one time and how friendly they are. I've seen one before, but not this much. One time. A must see, I must say.
200 men are working together with the tourists. Among them, many that had far more demanding jobs than those enjoyed by today. The success has led to envy from the neighbouring resorts without the giant attractions. Until now, it is still forbidden for any of the other resorts to open up a second Oslob. The resort can at times be filled to its capacity, especially at weekends. But now, instead of thousands at peak times, it's hundreds. Knowing that the few handfuls of feed won't satisfy the whale shark's diet, feeding, tourists and earning money stop at midday. The whale sharks shouldn't be overfed and thereby lose their natural feeding instincts. At the close of the day, all the men meet here at the most important building. Here will be decided how the money is shared out. The increase in the amount of motorcycle traffic is witness to the growing wealth of Oslob. These are the tensest minutes for Sosimo and his colleagues. One never knows quite how much money has been earned through ticket sales and tips. The earnings are shared out on a daily basis between the fishermen, the city of Oslob and the regional government. Exactly what the men earn is kept firmly beneath board. However, one can be certain that it is above the national average for the Philippines. In former times, Sosimo had to work from sunrise until sunset, and then at times into the night. Now he can afford the odd evening enjoying a drink with friends after work on the beach. The whale sharks have offered him a new and still at times unaccustomed life. The tipple of the day, a brandy and lemonade.
Ya, sukad nga niabot na siya dinha.
It cannot be emphasized enough how much progress we've made due to the whale sharks and the increase in revenue to our village and to our region. Now there's more money to be earned for us, the bird people. It's certainly enough that I don't have to worry about my family going hungry anymore. The creation of 200 new jobs through whale sharks alone is quite an achievement. In addition, come the shops, bars and restaurants to welcome the influx of tourists. Diving schools and resorts have sprung up all over the region. The old palm leaf roofed huts have been blown away by the typhoons. Here instead stand brick houses, often bedecked with little terraced kiosks. Sosimo and Lonnie may not have reached the highest levels of luxury, but two of Sosimo's children have fulfilled his dream of completing high school. 5 more to go. The household in the meantime is the proud possessor of a television. There are even some extras for the children. Lonnie and Sosimo are eternally grateful for the fortune the whale sharks have brought after so many years of struggle.
Kay ang tuki kay kana jung tuki jung kinang ato jung kana bang adunay ta respeto usa ko sa kay.
We have to pay our respects to the whale sharks. The fishermen of old lived by the rule that one must first pay respect in dealings with creatures from the ocean, for it is their kingdom and not ours. Ours is the land. In turn, we have to respect their environment, the ocean.
Malakaron respetado kayo ang taga-dagat nun.